Okay, this video is going along with Chapter 14, Section 2, where we're continuing our discussion on mortgages, potential credits, appraised value, total obligations of a borrower, and to see if you could possibly qualify for a FHA or a conventional loan. So the first section has to do with lines of credit by home equity. So how they're getting this information then is that they're taking the appraised value. The lender is going to give you 75% of that value. They're not going to give you the whole thing because they want to be able to sell that and still get their money out. So they're going to take the value of the home times their percentage, whatever that is, and that's set by the lender. So that's the potential that they would be willing to give that home. Okay, they're not going to give you all of it, they're going to give you a part of it. The balance of the first mortgage is this, so you have a difference then between what you still owe and what the value, the partial value of that home is. So that is your potential credit, and they call that the home equity because you're using the equity in your home line of credit. All right, so let's do another one of those. So the appraised value is $89,400. The lender is going to give you basically 2/3 of that, or 65%. Okay, so that is going to be then 58110. Right? You still owe on a first mortgage of this, so you can subtract that. So the potential home equity credit available is $20,310. Let's do one of your homework ones, just because I found it a little interesting when I was looking through it. We have an appraised value, $98,000. The lender is going to give you potentially 65% of that. So he's going to allow $63,700. The first mortgage is $66,000. So there is no credit available because they're based on their percentage. Now, if it was a different percentage, there might be a little bit there. But based on that percentage, they still owe more than they're going to allow you to have. So there is no potential for credit using the home equity at this lending institution. Might be a different bank they could try, might have a different value here, might give them a little bit. But not every home is going to qualify based on what the bank is, because they're not going to just give you money. You're going to have to qualify for it. So the next section is to see what your housing ratios are, and they'll do that based on what your housing expenses are based on your monthly income, and they'll do that as a percentage, and most percentages are simply part out of the whole. So if we're doing our housing expense, we would have see if I can move this up high enough here that we can get all of this in here. So we would have $455. We're going to divide it by our monthly income, move it over, change it back to a percent, and that's how they got that. So it's just part out of the whole. And total is just that. They're going to take these two pieces, so the housing plus your other obligation, might be a car payment. I'm going to add that up, and then they're going to divide it by the total. Move it over, make it a percent. Okay? So let's do number 10. Okay, so to figure your housing, start with, so you have 705. You're going to divide by the 3,100. Move it over. So you're going to have 22.74 as a percent. And then our total, remember, we're just going to add everything up. So that, again, this might be a car payment, might be child support, or whatever it is. Don't know, but it's everything that you have to pay every month for sure. So we would just add those all up. divide by our total. So that's 45.97%. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. They're not trying to do anything tricky here. You just have to take the information and do your calculations. I wanted to do one of the word problems. I found this one a little interesting because it had a challenge on the second part, so that's why I picked it to demonstrate. So let's go ahead and get our relevant information. Newarks have a combined monthly gross income of $9,702, which is pretty healthy. They have a monthly expenses of this, and the mortgage is going to be this. Okay, so that's the information we have. So it says the first question, what is Jamie's and Alice's combined housing expense ratio? Well, part, so we have 202. Let me get this up here in the calculator range here. So we have 202, and we're going to divide by the total. So 20.63%. Okay, so that looks not too bad. So now we go there, what is their total obligations? Well, again, we're going to add up everything here. So we're going to clear that all out. So our monthly obligations, so that's their house, or not their house, but their car and whatever it is, monthly bills, plus their potential house. And we're going to divide that by the total. Okay. 49.6%. All right. So then our part C down here says, for what kind of mortgage can they qualify for, if any? So let's review our information. Our housing was 20.63, and our total was 49.6. So then we have to go to the chart that's in the text. Okay, so to qualify for these types of mortgage, we need a housing expense ratio below 29 and 28, and our number was 20, so that part's okay, so we're okay there. But our total has to be for FHA 41 and conventional 36, and we're at 49, so we have a problem, Houston. So that's an issue. So they're not going to qualify for either type of loan based on this percentage right here. So then they have part D. Here it says, by how much would they need to reduce their monthly expenses in order to qualify for an FHA mortgage, which is 41% based on the chart. So we're going to do, so in order to qualify from the information above, we had housing of 2002, and we had monthly expenses of 2811, and then we need to reduce that amount by some unknown. So we're going to call that X. All right? And that's over the total information from the previous page in 9702. And all that has to equal the 41%. And I'm going to change that to a decimal because it's going to be easier to work with. So all that has to equal. So here's our setup for our problem. Well, the first thing we can do then is to clear out this denominator. And we do that by multiplying 9702 by both sides. Well, that clears this out. So now we're left with this. I didn't do anything to the top. And on the bottom over here, we're going to multiply these two numbers because we can clear that out there. Actually, I'll just drop it down. We'll do one step at a time. Okay, so I just cleared it out. So when I multiply or add, I can add these two things because we know what those are. So we're going to put those together. So that becomes 13 minus x. So we don't know what that is. And then we can put that into the calculator and multiply. We're going to have 3977.82. So I just multiplied. So I just cleared out the denominator, combined my like terms, multiplied through. But I still don't know what x is. I still don't know what I have to reduce this by. Okay, so we have to do another step. Well, I like to get a positive x. I have a negative x here. So I'm going to add x to both sides. And I'm going to scoot it over there because it's going to be easier to write. So those are going to cancel. Minus x plus x, they cancel out. So I'm left with 4813 is equal to 3977.82 plus x. Well, in all problems you want to get x by itself. So I want to subtract the number with the variable, right, from both sides. Got to do it to both sides of a balanced equation. All right? So that cancels out. That gives me x on this side. And when I subtract, then, I have 835.18. And that's how much money I would need to reduce, or they would need to reduce, their monthly expenses by to qualify for the FHA, which was 41%. So it's a fun little algebra problem. Just a few steps there to do it, but that's how you would set that up with an unknown to reduce if you ever get a question like that. So anyway, have fun with these, and